Welcome to Karma's Harvest. Today, we explore the story of a man who thought he could outsmart destiny by building on a foundation of lies, only to find that the weight of one's sins is the heaviest burden of all. A bridge is more than just stone and mortar. It is a sacred promise, a vow that those who step onto it will reach the other side. But for Silas, a master builder of the Great Northern Pass, a bridge was nothing more than a way to fill his pockets with gold. Silas was a man of immense talent, but his heart had grown as hard and cold as the rock he worked with. When the king commissioned him to build the High Arch, a bridge connecting the prosperous mainland to the isolated reaches of the eastern cliffs, Silas saw not a monument, but a gold mine. The king provided a fortune in pure gold to purchase the finest granite from the distant mountains, stone that could withstand centuries of wind and tide. But Silas had a different plan. He traveled to a local quarry and purchased cheap, porous sandstone, a material that looked sturdy on the surface but was hollow and fragile at its core. He pocketed the remaining gold, hiding the heavy bars beneath the floorboards of his study. To any observer, the High Arch was a masterpiece. Silas used a thin veneer of real granite to cover the sandstone, polishing it until it gleamed like a diamond under the sun. He filled the structural gaps with cheap plaster and painted it to match the stone. When the king inspected the work, he was breathless. "A bridge for the ages," the king declared, handing Silas a final massive chest of gold. For months, the bridge held. Merchants led their heavy caravans across it. Soldiers marched in rhythmic unison. Families crossed it to visit loved ones. Silas watched from his balcony, sipping fine wine, convinced he had committed the perfect crime. He began to believe that karma was a myth, a story told to frighten children and the weak-minded. However, there was one final payment. Silas had to collect a personal debt from a wealthy merchant. On the far side of the cliffs, one morning, Silas decided to cross his own creation. He hitched his carriage, loaded it with his most precious belongings, and set off. As Silas drove his carriage onto the High Arch, the air grew strangely still. The wind, which usually howled through the canyon, died down to a whisper. Halfway across, Silas heard a sharp, crystalline crack that echoed off the canyon walls. He froze. He looked down and saw a spiderweb of fractures, blooming through the beautiful granite veneer. The bridge had held for thousands of people, but it would not hold for the man who betrayed it. It was as if the stones themselves recognized the weight of the architect's deceit. The porous sandstone within began to crumble into dust. With a deafening roar, the center of the bridge gave way. Silas screamed as his carriage, his gold, and his legacy plummeted into the churning turquoise waters below. He did not die, however. The currents were strong, pulling him away from the mainland and toward the open sea. Hours later, exhausted and broken, he washed up on the shore of a tiny, barren island, a mere speck of sand and a single palm tree, surrounded by nothing but the vast, indifferent ocean. As he sat on the sand, he looked back toward the horizon. In the distance, he could see the two broken ends of the High Arch, reaching out toward each other like severed limbs. He was alive, but he was a prisoner of his own making. He had all the gold he had stolen tucked into his wet pockets, but there was no one to sell it to, and no bridge to take him home. Silas finally understood he hadn't just built a bridge of sand. He had built his own isolation. Every action we take is a stone we lay in the path of our future. When we build with honesty, the path remains firm. But when we build with greed, we shouldn't be surprised when the ground disappears beneath our feet.